You're back with America Outdoors Radio. I'm John Cruz. It's time to talk conservation. Last week, we talked about derelict fishing nets. This week, we're talking about derelict crab pots, abandoned and untethered in our waters on the bottom of the seafloor. You'll find them all over the bottom of Puget Sound. You'll find them all over the bottom of Maryland's Chesapeake Bay. And they're very harmful to the marine life there, not just to the crabs that continue to be caught in them either. With us here to tell us more about this problem in Washington's Puget Sound region is Jason Morgan with the Northwest Straits Foundation. Jason, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for having me, John.
So, Jason, I've been seeing some maps lately, and I've been astounded by the number of derelict crab pots that are sitting at the bottom of Puget Sound. I understand there's 614 off the Guaymas Channel near Anacortes, the gateway to the famed San Juan Islands, another 230 near Mukilteo. Do we have any sort of handle on how many of these abandoned crab pots litter the bottom of Puget Sound?
Yeah, it's pretty astounding, John. You know, a few years back, we did a research project, and there is an estimated over 12,000 crab pots that are lost in the Puget Sound region every year. Both a commercial and recreational problem, but the majority of those are recreational. And kind of put it into context, there's over 200,000 recreational crab licenses sold in Puget Sound every year, and also up to 60,000 of those are new crabbers every year. So there's a lot of people in the water and a lot of inexperienced people in the water causing this problem.
12,000 lost crab pots a year. That is absolutely amazing to me. How did they get there? I presume this isn't like, fishing nets where they're just lost or they're at the end of their life and thrown into the sea. How are they getting there?
So, of course, nobody wants to lose their gear. Most oftentimes it is user error, and that's what we're really focusing on because obviously we can't remove 12,000 crab pots every year. With all these new crabbers coming in, for about $30, you can go to your local marine supply store. You can go to Walmart and you can get a crab pot, your line, and a buoy and think you're ready to go. But that's not it. So those $30 pots are extremely lightweight. We look at the number one problem is these lightweight pots. So the number one thing we're telling people to do is to add weight to those pots. If you have a lightweight pot and you put it in the water and there's any change in tides, creating any type of current, it's really easy for those pots to move. And once the pot moves, it's going to be pretty hard for you to find it. Another one is length of line. If you're crabbing in 50 feet of water, 55 feet of line is not going to do it. You have to account for those changes in tides. That's going to change your depth and currents moving along. So we recommend extending your line at least a third of what the water's depth is. Those are the two biggest factors that we're really trying to push out there right now.
Let's talk about the harm that these abandoned or lost crab pots do to marine life. Now, a lot of folks think, well, once my bait's out of the pot, it's not going to do any harm, but that's not true at all, is it?
No, it's not. They continue to do what they're designed to do, which is catch marine life, particularly crab. That same research project where we got the estimated number of pots lost, we did a mortality study, and what came out of that was there's an estimated 180,000 harvestable male Dungeness crabs are lost in these derelict crab pots every year.
So I was looking at some of the photos on the Facebook page, and like you said earlier, these crab pots, they continue to do their work. A lot of them were just chock full of crabs, and they'd been down on the bottom for a long time.
Yeah, and crab pots are designed, if it becomes lost, they're designed to supposedly be able to allow crab to escape by have some type of escapement mechanism that's tied on with a biodegradable cord that degrades in the marine environment. But what we've learned through our removals and research is that a lot of these escapement mechanisms are ineffective. So even though a crab pot is technically disabled, they are continuing to catch and kill crab. And it's kind of a self-feeding mechanism because crabs will eat just about anything, including themselves. Each other is a better way of putting it. So, crab pots will get trapped in a pot, they'll die. Another crab will see it as food, go in and eat that guy or gal and die, and it just keeps happening.
That is amazing and disheartening as well. As we both know, they've actually closed down crabbing in the southern part of Puget Sound this year because of low abundance of Dungeness crabs down there. I'm not saying this is necessarily due to lost crab pots, but I'm guessing that's a factor.
Yeah, it probably does factor in that at some point. I think there's a lot more going on down there that's causing that problem. But obviously, if we're losing crab in these crab pots, that's going to account to a lower population without a doubt.
You know, I was doing some research before we went on the air, and about a decade ago, there was a similar situation that happened in Maryland's Chesapeake Bay. The blue crab commercial fishery was shut down after low abundance of crab, and then they started paying fishermen to remove lost crab pots, and it was a very successful program. As a matter of fact, there are studies that indicate that after the removal of a percentage, they couldn't get them all, but after removing a percentage of these crab pots, the blue crab harvest increased 27%. Do you think something, Yeah, I know, amazing number. Do you think something similar can happen in Washington's Puget Sound for the Dungeness and rock crab?
Yes, and there is something kind of similar going on now. So here in Puget Sound, when the recreational crabbing season is open, 2 days out of the week the season is shut down. So 5 days a week is open, 2 days a week is closed. On those closed days, Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife, they go and they do what they call gear sweeps. So they go and wherever they see buoys, they'll pull the gear. And in the past, not a whole lot of funding and time was dedicated to that. But as last year, that changed, and they're really ramping that up. And they went out and removed, I think, about 2,000 last year, and we're removing about 1,000 crab pots a year ourselves. So between those two efforts, I think we're making a dent, and Department of Fish and Wildlife are dedicated to continue to ramp up and improve those gear sweeps. And I think that's going to help a lot, just getting that gear out of the water before it does become derelict.
So Department of Fish and Wildlife, the gear sweeps, obviously those are the visible ones that aren't necessarily abandoned, that are just left in the water. Right. Sometimes these are poachers that are at work or people just not paying attention to the rules. What is the Northwest Straits Foundation doing to get these derelict abandoned pots from off the seafloor where they're not tethered anymore?
We do the in-the-water removal, so where the buoys are no longer on the surface. And the way we do that is first, where we identify priority areas, because obviously 12,000 crab pots all over Puget Sound, that's not something you can tackle like that. So we identify areas where we know there's going to be a high density, where there's a lot of crabbing happening, and there's a lot of potential causes for pot loss. And we start off by doing side scan sonar surveys to identify them, and then we remove them with divers, so we have minimal impact when we are removing the gear. And all this kind of ties into what Fish and Wildlife is doing as well, because I'm not sure the exact number, but every recreational crab license that is sold, a portion of that money goes toward the management of derelict fishing gear. So a portion of your crab license dollars goes to DFW, removing the gear off of the water, and goes to funding derelict crab pot removal, which we are doing as well.
We are out of time, but before we go, let's direct people to a website where they can find out more about this problem, educate others so that their friends aren't losing crab pots, and maybe donate to the cause, too.
Excellent. Yeah, if those of you listening, if you could go to derelictgear.org. If you go to that website, man, we have lots of tips and tricks to help you be a successful crabber, not lose your pot, bring more crab home. We also have links to apps on there and websites that can help you with knowing your tides and currents and when to set your gear. And we also have a series of instructional videos on there to demonstrate how to properly set up your crab pot.
There you go, folks. Don't be part of the problem. Be part of the solution. The website to go to, derelictgear.org. Again, that's derelictgear.org. Jason, thanks for the work that you and others at the Northwest Straits Foundation are doing for crabs in Puget Sound and other marine life, too.
Yeah, thank you for your time, John. I appreciate it.